I think most everybody knows who I am. Jesse Uebelhor, Division Agronomist here with Superior Ag. I get to work with all the kind of salespeople throughout the organization, and then some of you guys on your farms as well. So we're going to talk about the keys to a successful start out here, to the right start on your farm. So what we're going to talk about here is really about in-furrow row starters, and then 2x2, and then also just touch on products that you can put in there and why this makes it very important. So I'm going to let Joe go ahead and introduce himself here, and we'll let him take it from there.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming. As Jesse said, my name's Joe Rickard. I'm the Crop Protection Product Manager for Winfield United, and I cover the territory from Illinois to Maine and Michigan to the Mason-Dixon line. So see quite a bit of geography throughout the year, a little bit different growing conditions every place. It's kind of just a fancy term for region agronomist. I'm tech service for Winfield United itself at the end of the day. First question I've got for you as we go forward here is, how many of you guys got in-furrow or 2x2 capabilities on your planter? Okay, quite a few hands go up. As we talk about this here now, what are you guys using for your in-furrow or 2x2 fertility product of choice? This is the participation rate, guys. We're between you and dinner, and that ain't a good place to be. Let's put it that way. But 1034.0, 28%, 622.6, 918.9. Pick your flavor at the end of the day. Really, I don't care what you use. That's the starter portion of what we're looking at, right? That's the starter piece. The next ladder up or rung up, stair up as we go to capture yield, and what are some of those things that we can use in furrow as we go forward or in your 2x2 system? How many of you guys utilize zinc in that in furrow mix or 2x2? Okay, not as many hands go up. Why are you guys utilizing zinc of those that you put your hands up? Root growth, okay. Usually when we get in the adage of, well, Jesse told me to put it in there, so I needed to put it in there, right?
You're adding phosphorus, the zinc is tied up.
Okay, that's one good piece right there. So that's worth the shirt there itself as we look at it. So if you guys add manure or that phosphorus component, heavy phosphorus can tie up zinc is one of those components. But really, how many of you guys got a tow motor or forklift on the farm? One guy got a forklift on the farm. How about a skid loader? You got skid loader with forks here at the end? Okay, it's hands start to go up. The point being is zinc is the forklift when that seed starts to germinate. It grabs that P, grabs that K, and starts to take it up with it at the end of the day when you think about why we're utilizing zinc. It's the forklift of that germinating plant. You look at some different products up here at SAR. You go from left to right. You look at the ammoniated zinc from a competitor product, our 10% Citrikey zinc, our 10% complete zinc that we have, and then our 9% zinc. You hear the guys in the back here that got the black shirts on, Jesse itself, always promoting that Ultra Key 9% zinc at the end of the day. Why is that? Any of you guys had to clean out a planter tank that maybe got cottage cheesed up with fertilizer incompatibility at the end of the day? Any of you guys ever had to do that? Nobody here and there. Maybe some guys don't want to admit it here over in the corner, but as a young agronomist, I had to. Those are one of those things. I made the wrong recommendation as we look at orthophosphate. A lot of obscenities from you guys as you come in as things are starting to move. So that's one thing that I make sure that I don't want to ever do again. We look at the 9% zinc because as we go back to whatever you guys are using for your starter, 918.9, 622.6, 1034.0, that Ultra Key 9% zinc is going to end up and mix with anything that you guys have, whatever fertilizer you have at the end of the day. Ease of use now becomes the play itself when we look at it. Jesse, you've got some local data here that you have with in the region.
So I think most of you guys are all using zinc in that in-furrow or a 2x2 application, depending how you're set up out there. But definitely, as he mentioned before, we've seen some positive results out of zinc before using 1 quart. But one thing we always see is we still seem to get all our tissue samples coming back, and we're still deficient in zinc. We still can't seem to get enough zinc up in that plant. And if zinc is a building block that's taking all of your nutrients up, helping you get phosphorus and potassium up into that plant, it would make sense to have as much zinc as possible. So we went ahead and ran 2 quarts of zinc in our innovator trials the other year, And what we're seeing is basically a 2.5 bushel yield bump by going to 2 quarts of zinc versus 1 quart. So, you know, if you think about a positive ROI on it, I mean, everybody can have their number for corn, whether it's $4.50 today or if it's $6 or whatever. But even if zinc runs $7.50, $8, you're still going to have a positive ROI. You're about going to double your money is what you're looking at for the most part with the zinc at 2.5 bushel yield response. So with that, we're going to show you some of the roots over here, and then we're going to end up getting up and we'll go out outside the tent.
So we started about talking with zinc, adding that to the starter. Any questions on zinc on what we've gone through here right now at this point in time? We're going to get out in the plot here and explain a little bit more as we go forward, but this is our in-furrow block. We've got different treatments here, different in-furrow mixes as we go through this, but we're going to focus on 3 here today for this stop and the 20 minutes that we've got. So in Jesse's left hand here itself, right hand, excuse me. It's been a long day, fellas, it's been a long day. We look at his right hand. This is going to be our untreated check. No starter, no zinc. Not a bad root ball, right? Not a bad one, just a little, kind of on the small side, okay? Looks decent on the root system, okay? Everything here in this plot was treated the same population, same fertility. The only thing that's different is the in-furrow package. As you look at that below ground piece, looks okay, but now as you notice I cut them off and I wanted to look at that stalk. What does that stalk integrity look like? As you look at it over in that corner, can you see it kind of being compromised? Maybe some brown in where it should ultimately be white or green on that rind itself. So we have some stalk integrity issues there. We're at August 8th, 9th here this time frame right now. 10th here, I think it's today. Sorry, losing track of days here too. What do you think that's going to look like here come another month, 45 days from now? You think we're going to see some lodging issues or could potentially see some lodging issues with that untreated check? You're exactly right. So let's take a look and compare and contrast what's in Jesse's left hand right here. This here right here is going to be 4 gallon of 1034O and 1 quart of 9% zinc. So as you compare and contrast, you can see that a little bit bigger root ball, a little bit better stalk integrity, stalk girth, and healthiness that you take a look at that. So if Jesse flips them over after he shows you the underside, he'll show you the stalk. Of those of you guys over there that you said you saw some brown, do you see any brown on the zinc treated? No, right? When you think about that, we relate back to what we just talked about. Zinc is the forklift. It's grabbing that P, grabbing that K. K, or potash, is your plant health nutrient at the end of the day, right? Grabbing some more to bring that up. This is all pop-up, in furrow, in the furrow itself. So I'm going to put the untreated down, and we're going to compare and contrast what we have in our third treatment right here. What's in Jesse's left hand is 1034O at 4 gallons, 1 quart of 9% zinc, and 5 ounces of Ascend Squared. Ascend Squared is our new PGR that we'll get into as we get out into the plot. But as you hold those up and look underneath underneath that soil profile, you see even a little bit bigger root ball, right? A lot more fibrous roots, some of those smaller root hairs itself that you see on the Ascend treatment versus just the 1034O and zinc. Why does that make a difference at the end of the day? Those small root hairs are what's uptaking nutrients, uptaking the water to get it into the plant. Those larger roots are the ones that are going to be scavenging through that soil profile to root down in there. As you look at the stalk integrity, the girth of that stalk is the diameter component really fits into that, and the health, as you can see, those spindle fibers that are in that stalk are a lot healthier, ultimately equating to standability when you guys run the combine through, hopefully, this harvest season.
Definitely.
So if you don't have in-furrow capabilities in that row, you can look at a 2x2 as putting that in there for that if you have 2x2 on your planter. If you don't have 2x2. The other option that you've got is with your dry fertility package. If you're spreading MAP in the fall, You can look at spraying dry zinc, like a 35.5% zinc sulfate product, a 10% zinc LS product that we've got here that you can end up and get zinc that way. It's not as effective as what it is putting right in furrow with that seed, but it's the only option that you have if you don't have a 2x2 or in furrow capabilities at the end of the day. Good question. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
What's the difference between in furrow and 2x2 as far as yield and root growth?
So everything that we've done here, right?
The rate or anything for that?
Everything that we've done here or we do within Winfield is all in furrow. That's what we look at. So everything goes within the seed. When we get out in the plot, you'll see a little bit of why we do that and what we can do within that as far as different options that Jesse will go over within that piece. So the 2x2 component, again, this is all by different operations as far as what fits best for you guys at the end of the day. When we look within our system itself, we see a lot of in-furrow capabilities across the whole corn belt itself. All right, we really wanted to get you out into the plot to really show you what some differences are here instead of it just being a backdrop as what we looked at here itself. So Jesse's holding up our Ascend Squared on what we just went over on that underneath portion of the soil type and looking at those stalks itself. You can see this green circle where we've got Ascend Squared. What's this kind of look like, this triangle shape look like to you guys? Any of you guys ever take a soils class? You ever seen a soil textural triangle where it has sand, silt, clay on it itself? Part of the team that I work with, we ended up and put this together from cytokinins, gibberellic acid, and how much auxin is in that component of some of these PGRs as plant health components. As we look at, you can see that Ascend Squared is auxin dominant. This is the only product on the market, only PGR that is auxin dominant. Why is it, or why would we formulate that product this way? Any ideas why we have that much auxin or a high auxin level? Go back to those roots that we just showed you below ground. Root initiation, rooting. That's where it really comes into play with that high auxin component here itself. You guys, if you're familiar with our Ascend products, the Ascend SL, the Ascend Pro, fit down right here in this green dot here itself. And then you can see that red and orange dot right there are some of the competitive products that we go up against in this marketplace right here within the PGRs itself. I do want to focus here a little bit on what we've got husked back and the treatments that we went over. This right here, this treatment or middle two rows here is the ones that I've husked back. This is our untreated check. So when you look at that smaller root ball or the smallest root ball that we had in there with the small diameter stalk, that's what we've got right here in these husked back ears. Right where Jesse's at, right in front of, that's going to be our 1034O and zinc. Those same stalks kind of correlating. As you look right at the corner of the tent on what you'll see, that's going to be our 1034O, zinc, and Ascend treatment that we've got. As you look at these and kind of go through, and would welcome you to come in after we're done talking to look through. You guys are the last stop here of the day. But as you start to look at ear placement, we looked at above ground, below ground right now with some of those stalks and roots that we dug. But as you start to look at ear placement, you start to see some of those ears start to pop up or go down and not be on an even keel as you go forward. It's not as prevalent in this plot, but as you go forward and you look now down at the Ascend Squared treatment, all those start to line up at the same ear height as you go forward. So kind of a board we put together, and I wanted to showcase it both ways, is we looked at that root mass, that root ball that we just talked about, walked through. You can see the difference in ear size as we peeled back these ears. One component that you look here now as far as that ear set and kind of having that even keel all the way across when we use that, everything keeping at the same height as we go forward. And then finally, whether you guys start to plant 30,000, 34,000, 36,000, you want to make sure that you get every single one of those plants up and out of the ground, right? Ascend helps do that to get that picket fence stand. Get them up out of the ground and start photosynthesizing, okay? Any questions or comments on Ascend Squared? All right, Jesse, we'll transition over to you.
Okay. So we're going to kind of go into the in furrows and just take a look at some things that we're seeing out there. when we actually go to the in-furrow here to start with. So this is 2x2 only here versus 2x2 with in-furrow on it. So I think you guys can all see visually a difference there. Difference in the root mass here. You can see a difference in the actual stalk, the ear, the leaf, the actual mass of the leaves out there. So the biomass that you're seeing. So definitely a healthier, bigger, robust plant already at that V4 stage on corn. This just another picture here out in the field when you're actually just standing there and you're looking at it. All of this has 2x2 on it, okay? So we didn't take anything out of that. We're just taking a look at what we had with the in-furrow, with the zinc and ascend versus the untreated here. I think visually, you kind of look over here, just kind of see what's happening here. So we want to talk about, you know, what Jason and them were talking about earlier here. You can have everything right on your planter. We can do all these nutrients and everything out there. But maybe in this row here, you see the difference here? There's something going on there that maybe a planter's not set quite right, or maybe our 2x2 was off and not as close to the row. There's things that go on. If we got to make sure we also have those right too. So, but definitely can see a difference with the in-furrow right there as well. So why else do we like in-furrow treatments? What other things does it give us opportunities to do? So there's a lot of different strobillions on the market, products that you can consider to use out there for fungicide treatments that you can put in furrow for in your row starter. So what are we trying to protect? So what we're trying to protect is we're trying to protect this mesocotyl. Okay, the mesocotyl is actually what feeds off of the seed and feeds this plant until that plant gets to about V4. So most of you guys go out there and say, man, I got a beautiful stand of corn that's coming up, and you're rowing corn, popped up out of the ground, looks beautiful. And you come back 2 weeks later, and what do you see? You see some up and down, don't you, and some smaller ones. And you know, some guys say, well, it was uneven placement, or maybe it didn't get planted the right depth and different things. But when we start digging them up, a lot of times what I see is some seedling blight starting here. So this mesocotyl starts to get some brown discoloration in it. Also, from time to time, we'll see this crown area start to get diseased. So you'll actually get some fusarium crown rot will start in there in these plants. So we're trying to protect these plants and give us the maximum yield potential. Is this plant here going to have maximum yield potential? Is it still going to survive? Probably. But it's going to be like a weed. If you look out in the untreated over here, you'll see several of those plants out there where the plant came up late, still survived, or maybe didn't come up late, but it still survived, but it was way behind and it didn't pollinate very well either. So,
as Jesse hit on that fusarium crown rot, when does that initially infection take place? It's kind of an oxymoron, right? Here, early season, up to V3. When do you guys see or really feel the effects of fusarium crown rot? Say it again. Harvest time frame. When you're running that combine through and you start to see lodging plants, or you're starting to do that push test as you go in to prioritize what fields you're going to end up and do first, you start to see that fusarium crown rot start to play out here, but later in the season.
So if you I like this one here. This is an infield trial we've done, and I continue to do this. And one thing I want you guys to look at, sometimes you see stuff and you're like, there's not really much difference. I see the treated versus the untreated. It's maybe a little different, okay? It didn't look really big. This is all in furrow. And then you kind of put it on the board and you take a picture and you're like, yeah, I can kind of see a difference. If you start zooming in, it didn't hit me on some of these, and that's where when you got to really just start looking at things and you go, okay, what else is the difference? What things is going on? You start zooming in on the area around the crown here, and you start looking at the tissue. You guys see any difference in the tissue on the plant here? You see anything different? Discoloration, yeah? So this here's the treated, very healthy green tissue. You know, your leaf sheath on there is very healthy. Look at this discoloration all around the leaf sheath there, all the rotted, desiccating material right here. That's probably going to turn into crown rot or some sort of fusarium crown rot that'll start in that plant. So still see, it just gives me a building block what we can put into with that in-furrow application, along with insecticides and other thing else to keep seed corn maggots, wireworms, other things, cutworms, to keep that plant healthy. So in-furrow, no 2x2 on both of these here. So this is no 2x2, this is 2x2. Here again, if you're looking to make a next step and looking at your 2x2, there's a difference when you add a 2x2. Now, do you have to put 2x2 on, or is this telling us one other thing? At least in a management practice, we need to make sure we have enough nitrogen out there to bridge us from that V4 standpoint on corn when it stops living off the seed basically until we actually reach, if you're a guy that's running anhydrous or putting on late side dress nitrogen applications, we have to get a nitrogen application somewhere in that V3 time frame so that we have nitrogen available for that corn plant through that V5, V6 when it's determining ear sizes. So you kind of take a look at this. This is no 2x2 versus 2x2. Anybody see anything going on there? Anybody see any difference on the left versus the right? So you're seeing, if you look right here, everybody can see stripes in here, right? Can you see that? Maybe depending on the light, it might be bad, but this is 2x2 on it. This is no 2x2. So what you're seeing in there is the anhydrous striping going on where it's getting to its nitrogen and it's not getting to its nitrogen as we go across there. This is in that V5 stage in corn there. Kind of that period everybody was talking about this last year again. So we got lots of trials set up this year. We should have a lot of data coming out of the 2x2 as well again. So we want to kind of refresh that with all the things guys are doing a little bit different. So talk about what else you can do if you are a 2x2 person where you got 2x2. So how many guys heard of Xyway? Okay, so we got a lot of guys using Xyway. We've trialed it a lot. This is a great product out here. 37 trials, a 7.1 bushel yield response in all our innovator trials with a 81% win ratio. 81% is probably the biggest thing that pops out to me. It's that positive of a yield result in a 2x2 system is where we usually use the Xyway at. This is just looking at stalks treated versus untreated here. Xyway treated versus untreated here. I think we can all see that. But the one thing I want you guys to walk away with, we're about out of time too, Colton? Okay. All right. Last thing here, looking at Xyway. Don't forget with Xyway, it has excellent protection on Xyway for gray leaf spot and northern corn leaf blight. But what are the main two diseases we're really focused on right now? What are we talking about? Southern rust and what else? Tar spot, okay? So this R1 fungicide application, what we've seen with adding that on top, we're looking at almost a 28.5 bushel yield response in a couple trials where we actually did Xyway plus the fungicide in the trials. So with that, thank you guys. Anybody else got any other quick questions? I think we'll let you guys go with Colton.